Hello viewers, today we will be cleaning, servicing and repairing a very early Lasko WeatherShield box fan. This is a very rare model. It does need a fair bit of help. The handle is broken. These handles notoriously broke. This one is probably the most tastefully repaired one that I've ever seen. But I have a new one, so we're going to put that on. And it's pretty dirty. It's like a very fine, kind of like a pollen consistency, dust all over it. I don't really think it's pollen. It's not the color of pollen. Maybe it is. I don't know. Anyways, we got to get that off. We're going to clean and service the motor. This is, I believe, one of the recalled motors. It has the smaller PSC motor in it. And I don't know if the motors failed due to cheap insulation on the windings, or if the insulation failed because of heat from people who don't clean the fans. Heat builds up and then it deteriorates the insulation. That's my guess. And so I suspect if you kept this clean, it would probably run forever with no problem. So we're going to go with that. Because of the rarity of this fan, this is not a model I would run all the time unattended anyways. I'd only use this when I'm there, so I'm not worried about it. Somehow the original feet have survived over the years. They're heavily yellowed and they're dirty, but they're still there, so we're going to use those. And let's see here, cord is polarized but non-fused. Yeah, let's see if we can get a look at the informations on here. It is UL listed, and that just goes to show that just because it bears the UL listing, it doesn't necessarily make it safe. And this has a date code of 2001 to 2002. So this is indeed one of the first WeatherShield box fans there was. And based on this information, it looks like it's going to be a model 3747. So let's begin disassembly. Came apart quite easily, so now we're left with a frame that we can wash, the knob, the blades, this looks like it may have been a fairly low hours machine. Usually these are a lot dirtier than this. And while I suppose they could have cleaned it, the amount of dust that's on here is pretty consistent throughout. So they would have had to do a very thorough job, which is not inconceivable, but it's highly unlikely. But anyways, I'm going to take all these things upstairs. I'm going to wash it in the bathtub because it's too small for the sink down here. And then I'll come back and get some more video when everything has been cleaned. Okay, we're going to service the motor now while the plastic parts have been cleaned. And this dust, it comes off very easily because it's like a dry, non-sticky material. But it's getting everywhere. It's all over the screwdriver. It got on the telephone. So I'm going to have to do a lot of cleaning here when we're done with this. But anyways, everything is going pretty well thus far, and I have to say I'm very happy with the way the plastic piece is cleaned up. So hopefully everything will continue to go well and we can get the motor cleaned up. I looked before for a name on the motor, and I don't see any branding on it whatsoever, so I'm not sure who made this. I don't know if this is one of those Glory motors like what they use now, or if this is from a different company. Anyways, I think this motor is a little bit bigger than the ones that they currently use, or at least it certainly seems like it. The windings are a little beefier and everything. I know people rag on these motors, but I really think that these earlier ones anyways were about as good as the shaded pole ones were from Marco. But anyways, let's get in here and see if we can clean this up and oil the bearings. Now the shaft is pretty clean, so I think we're going to be able to just slide it right off, it being the front bearing. I do want to just clean this, make sure there's no dust on there first. Well, there's going to be some dust, but we'll try to minimize it. Take a little bit of non-fan oil. I'll put that on the shaft here just to make the bearing come off a little bit easier and eliminate the likelihood of any damage or scraping to the bearing. Okay. Now let's see if this will pull right off. It did. That was very easy. And inside we have more of that dusty material, so I'll go ahead and clean that out. And here's the winding itself. You can see there's a lot of material here, a lot of copper. So I really don't think this is that bad of a motor. Now looking at the shaft, there is pretty much no wear marks on the front, so I believe that would be pretty consistent with my theory of this being a relatively low hours fan. Well, it actually looks like there's some in the camera screen, but in person it doesn't really look like it. Can't feel anything. And there's plenty of lubrication on the back still even, so that's good. Now I want to detach the stator from the rear housing so we can clean the windings off. And it looks like that will transpire relatively easily. Be careful with the way the leads come off. I'm going to detach the capacitor here. It's a machine screw, so that's a little bit nicer quality than the, just jamming a sheetrock, or not sheetrock, a metal screw into there. When it's self-tapping. Alright, so now I can clean this. I want to get all this dust. Actually, I'm going to get the vacuum going. I don't want the dust to go in the bearing. I'll capture it in the vacuum as it comes off. Okay, so now we're going to put the windings back in place. They are clean now, at least on the back anyways. I'll clean the front once I get them back together. Okay, that's that. And I'll screw the capacitor back on. Screws in very nicely. Okay. I'll do a little more cleaning on the windings here. Not too bad on the front. I think a little bit of dust got in there in the bearings, but not much. Did the best I could to avoid that. Now we'll clean the bearings, although there's not much to be cleaned. I think if that dust hadn't gotten in there, I probably wouldn't even clean them at all. Get that dust out of there, and make sure we get all the dust out of the front. No, actually the front one was a little bit dirty. It's not dirty anymore. Oh, actually this should be cleaned off too. Alright, now we're going to oil it. We got two options. We could use the fan oil for fans, specifically for fans. It says it right on the box, but yet some people still having a hard time with this. This oil is for fans, and this oil is not, because you see it doesn't say fans anywhere. This one says fans. It's right there. You can also use it on lawnmowers, but in this case we're going to use it on fans. So we have this oil that we can use, but I'm running out of that because I use it a lot, so we're going to use zoomed spout today. And this is also good for fans. It says electric motors right on it. Electric, where is it? Here we go. Electric motors. Electric motors. This one does not have any indication whatsoever that it should be used in electric motors. The closest thing it has to an electric motor is a saw blade, and even then it's just showing the blade, not the saw itself. So neither of these cans should be used in motors. We're going to use either this one that's for fans, or this one that's for electric motors. since I have more of this, I'm going to use this one. And the bearing in the back here is closed. So I'm going to put quite a few drops in here because that's not easy to get to on a regular basis. Okay, I put a lot of oil in there. And I'm going to put some oil on the shaft itself. And then I'm going to stick that in there. And you're going to have to overcome the air that's in there. So it's going to like bounce up again. You just have to jam it in there and eventually it'll stay. Alright, and now I will put some oil in this bearing. And put some on the shaft. And I think this doesn't really have a specific way to go on. So I'll just do that. The shaft has all oil on it, so we'll get the excess off and drop some more down in there. Alright, I think that should be good. So now we can put this away for the next time I have to oil an electric motor. And I'll put this away for the next time I have to oil a fan. And now screw this back together. What is that? There's some kind of a metal tag on there. I don't know what that is. That could have been bad if that got into the motor. I'm going to tighten this by hand because I want them torqued a certain way. And with these I usually go, I don't go that tight with these, just like 2 finger tight usually. That drill probably would make it a little bit tighter than I want it to be. Okay, and now it's spinning okay, but we are going to have an alignment issue. So kind of just move the shaft around in all different directions, and that usually frees it up for the most part. You could take a rubber handle screwdriver and give it a couple taps. Freed up the rest of the way. Spin down time isn't very long, but it's certainly spinning freely, so I don't know what its problem is. Alright, so now that's taken care of. The motor is ready to go. All that's left is to clean up the dust from the internal wiring here. This dust is everywhere. At least it comes off easily. Sometimes this stuff is like sticky or whatever and it doesn't come off at all. And that is when it becomes a real nuisance. This is not bad at all. Wish all the projects I did were like this. And this is inside the fan, you can't see it. I'm not going to get too particular about, you know, this this wire. This wire, actually, this part is visible from the back, so I'll make sure this gets cleaned up correctly. I always like to make sure I get in the crease between the two cords. You see, because you can wipe this down and it looks cleaner, but it's still got that, you know, that dirt in the middle there, in between the wire. So I like to make sure I always get that out. It's kind of a freak show going on upstairs now. I finished cleaning that up. I cleaned, oh no, the sticky stuff got on there. I cleaned this piece up, so that's all ready to go back together. And I'm going to go get the rest of the components now, and we'll reassemble. Here's the cabinet. Could use a repainting. It's kind of scratched up there where the handle is, you know, because your fingers go and hit it. But other than that, it's pretty good. It cleaned up very well. Here's the new handle. I have a newer WeatherShield box fan at work, and that's why I took this off of, because I don't move the one at work around that often. I'd rather this one have the good handle. Putting these handles on is always a little bit flaky. Get one side in. That's on. Almost on. Now it's on. I think what I may do, just because these have a tendency to break, is I might just kind of fill this in with hot glue. Because these tabs, they just can't hold it. That shouldn't be visible from the top, so I'll probably do that. Is there another tab that's got to go in? No, okay. So now let's get the motor in. Actually, I guess we gotta put this bracket on first. So that's going to go like that, and that means the switch is going to sit like that. Okay. I'm just going to put two of these in here for now. I'm not sure if it's going to be easier to take this off to get the switch in or not. It may be. Alright, so I think something doesn't seem quite right about this. I guess it just goes like that. I don't know. Okay, so the switch goes in this orientation. Perfect. Now this sticky stuff here got wet, so I'm not sure if it's going to still be sticky. I may have to hot glue it in. Yeah, it lost all its stickiness, so I'm going to have to get the hot glue out. Which is actually fine, because I was going to glue the handle anyways. While the hot glue is heating, I want to take a moment to acknowledge how nice this cabinet is. I don't think I've ever seen one this nice before. They almost always get rust in it. Even the one I have upstairs from a couple of years ago has a coating of rust around the whole thing. But this one cleaned up beautifully. There's not a single iota of rust on it. While we're waiting, I guess we should also test it and make sure it still works. That's just the handle. Glue should fix that. Okay, that is working still. Low temperature. I'm going to lose access to the screw once I glue this in place, so I'm going to screw it first. Okay, so what I'm going to do, what in the world? Okay, anyways, I'm going to put a strip of glue here. And this happens to be a low temperature glue. And I'll set the wire over it like this. No, it wasn't fast enough. It already dried up here. Either that or the gun isn't warmed up enough. It's probably a combination of both. Or the gun is out of glue. Oh, for heaven's sakes, that was a complete and total failure. Okay, take two. Actually, maybe it should sit like that. That's probably even better. And this is easily removed if I need to service it again. This is why I secure it with hot glue to begin with. That's what I did to the handle. I'm not sure if it's really going to make any difference or not. I thought perhaps it'll add a little bit of stability on the other side. It doesn't really matter. These handles are not hard to come across. They're still under manufacture. But I figured I would try to make it a little bit better if possible. The wire is in place. And I like to make sure it's very secure, because if it ever came off and it got into the path of the blades, that wouldn't go well. Break off a little bit of the excess glue here. And now I will go get the blade and guards, and we can finish the assembly. The blade cleaned up very, very nicely. It's got a nice shine to it even. The spin down time is good. Here's the front guard, which also cleaned up incredibly well. Took some time to get this cleaned up because it's too cold to do it outside, and I don't think I'd really want to clean this with the pressure washer and condenser cleaner anyways, because I'd be too concerned about it getting ruined. So I did it manually with the brush and warm water, a little bit of soap. Took probably about 20 minutes, but it is perfect now. Same thing with the rear guard. Rear guard was a little bit easier to clean up because the slats aren't as deep. Not probably about half as deep as the front is. Yeah, the feet don't look too good. Maybe I'll replace them. But everything else looks pretty good. This really came out great. It looks brand new. Alright, it's time for the first test after cleaning and servicing. Start off on low. Very powerful. Medium, or number 2. Oh, it's actually a little bit out of balance. Not too bad. A little bit. Throwing a lot of air. And high for 3. Probably going to get a lot of grief for saying this, but I think this may be one of the most powerful plastic blade box fans that exists that's newer than like 1980. I think this definitely outperforms the Lakewood 3rd generation box fans. I think this outperforms the D-blade box fans. I think this is on par with the Lakewood 2nd generation box fans, at least in terms of air velocity. Maybe the volume isn't as high, I don't know, but it's extremely powerful. So anyways, that's that, the Lasko WeatherShield box fan. I know these aren't like a valuable collector piece per se, but I'm very happy to have this in my collection because I remember when these came out and I always wanted one and I never caught one. So I'm glad I have this one now. Anyways, thank you for watching. Goodbye.